It would be happiness to see, such a unity, I'm telling you. One, everybody know. Love to the world, is all that I can say, deep, deep down in my soul, I would like to see that day of peacefulness, happiness, and togetherness. I would like to see that day when love was come to stay. Voila, sing it with me. It would be happiness to see, such a unity. Voila, everybody sing it. My dream is my dream is my dream, it's my dream, yeah. I look around at the most that I can see. Hatred and confusion throughout humanity. No peacefulness, no happiness, no togetherness. But I would like to see that day when love would come to stay. One, sing it with me now. It would be happiness to see such a unity, I'm telling you. One love, one love. And love to the world is all that I can say. Deep, deep down in my soul, I would like to see that day. Your peacefulness, happiness, and togetherness. I would like to see that day when love will come to stay. One, sing it with me. It would be happiness to see, such a unity, I'm telling you. One, everybody know. Love to the world, is all that I can say, deep, deep down in my soul, I would like to see that day of peacefulness, happiness, and togetherness. I would like to see that day when love was come to stay. Voila, sing it with me. It would be happiness to see, such a unity. day when love would come to stay. One love. Sing it with me now. Hey, happiness we see. Such a unity, I'm telling you. One love. One love. I would like to see that day. Your peacefulness, happiness, and togetherness. I would like to see that day when love would come to stay. One love, sing it with me now. It would be happiness to see, yeah, yeah, yeah. Such a unity, I'm telling you. One love, everybody now. Yeah, thank you very much, brother. Spread it love. Yeah, 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 my dream. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, yeah. Columbus was a mighty sailor. He sailed the open seas. He went down in the Caribbean and he called it the West Indies. He said he found a new world and he expect me to believe. But how could this world be new when it's much older than Adam and Eve? Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lie. He said he discovered the whole of America. He never tell nobody. He had to run from Apache. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied so bad. I believe Columbus was mad. Whoa, 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 whoa. And the man with the Santa Maria was as brave as a man can be. He sailed down to Venezuela for another discovery. He said he discovered new lands and he thought that I wouldn't know. He discovered a lot of Indians who discovered the lands before Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lied. Columbus lie. He took all the glory, oh yeah, for many discoveries. The truth of the story, those lands were discovered already. Columbus lie. Columbus lie. Columbus lie like hell. I am sure his head wasn't well. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, blah, blah. Nowadays you enter a strange land, they call you an alien. You got to explain to immigration what is your intention. Columbus didn't have to do that. It just didn't make no sense. His authority was a broad hat and his passport was violence. Columbus lied. good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. Columbus Live, the mighty shadow, Winston Bailey. Before that, he gave us One Love, One Love. Columbus Live, we're turning the narrative about Columbus around, telling the story of Columbus from the standpoint of the West Indian eye, the Caribbean eye. As you know, Columbus got lost. He was headed to the east. He got lost, realized he was in the west. And so instead of the East Indies, he called it the West Indies. The West Indies, and of course, the term Caribbean comes from the Carib tribe. Columbus lie, Columbus lie, Columbus lie. Columbus is a lion. I think Columbus was mad. His head wasn't well, say the shadow. Columbus mad, crazy. He didn't tell anyone that he had to run from Apache. He was a coward. So here's the Caribbean Calypsonian. Turning Columbus into an anti-hero, for Europeans, for Americans. In America, there's a day to Columbus Day, sometime in October. But for us in the Caribbean, argues the Caisonian, Columbus is not a hero, he's a liar, he's a madman. He is a coward, he had to run from the Indians that he met. And of course, here in the Caribbean, lots of native Indians, indigenous people were massacred. In fact, you can call it a genocide because in some of the Caribbean countries, indigenous people hardly exist. Handful of them. There are some in St. Vincent, handful in Dominica, but that's it. You have to come on the mainland in Guyana to find indigenous people wiped out by disease and violence on the part of the Europeans. We're gonna talk someday, we're gonna have some of the indigenous thinkers and leaders come onto the program and talk about the indigenous community. We Africans and Indians monopolize a lot of the political space, and so we don't get to talk a lot about the Amerindian experience or the indigenous experience. But Columbus lie. Good evening to all of you and welcome to Politics 101 on a Tuesday night. On the East Coast here, it's been raining in and out all day. Rain a little bit, stop, rain. I can't say when I was a small boy they called that kind of rain by a certain name. It's not politically correct to say that these days, certainly not on air. When the rain, he fall a little bit, he go in, he fall back again, he come out. They say it's a certain kind of rain. But these days you can't say those things. It's not politically correct, and I respect that. Still rainy and cloudy all day, but it's coming down to that time, the November, December, Christmas time, the rains come. This Dennis Booker, Dennis Booker, you're going to get me in trouble. I don't have to say Dennis Booker say it. Well, I know my friends in Buxton wouldn't be offended if I were to describe the rain on air, but those are my friends in Buxton. But you have to respect protocols these days. Yes, that is Booker. You know what kind of rain is it? Oh Lord. let me take time out to wish one of the followers of this program, a friend of mine, Mr. Rollins Miller. They call him in Buxton Mojo. Um, he's celebrating his 70th birthday today. You know, three score and ten, three score and ten, and they'll have a to do tonight. Um, I'm hoping to pass through when we're finished with the program. Um, I will be fashionably late because I didn't want to call off the program. Dainty's watching from Essequibo. Uh, Good evening to you, Dainty. Good evening to Audrey Brown, who is a regular, a staple. Happy birthday to Mr. Miller, Mojo. Make it three scores and 10. And as you know, the big people would say, bye, you don't know if you're going to meet them. Um, Happy birthday to you, Mojo. And all those of you who are celebrating your birthday today or this week, I would like to wish you a happy birthday, be happy or strong, all the new terms that we have. Dr. Henry Jeffries here tonight, and I think we are going to be bringing him in as soon as he gets himself situated. Dr. Jeffries here tonight. Lots to talk about with Dr. Jeffrey. Lots to talk about with Dr. Jeffrey. So please share the link. Some of you have done so already. Those of you who have not done so, please do so because we are ready to roll. Good evening to all of you who are joining us from Brooklyn, the United States of America, New Jersey, New York, of course, getting a new mayor elect. Quite a stir there in New York. And as you know, the Democrats did fairly well in the elections last Tuesday. Good evening to all of you joining from New Jersey. Those of you who are further north, as far as Hartford, Connecticut, and other parts of Connecticut. Good evening to you if you're joining us from Massachusetts, some West Indians, Guyanese in the Boston area. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you in Canada. Lots of you in the Ontario province, Toronto, Canada. Good evening to you. And good night to all of you who are joining us from Europe, especially those of you in the United Kingdom. Welcome to another edition of Politics 101. Of course, good evening to my friends in Arizona and those of you close by, California and Texas. I know a few people from Austin, Texas joining us. Good evening to my friend Aubrey Paul out there in Texas, Austin. The man, as a small boy, we call at swank. He never wants his swank cold. He always say you got to get his swank hot, and he got a lifelong name, Hot Swank. Mr. Hot Swank, welcome to Politics 101. I think Dr. Jeffrey is ready for us, so let's bring it in. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, David, and to your audience.
And of course, you were here 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks seem like a long time in Guyanese politics. Every day there is something. In the interim, we had the delayed convening of Parliament last Monday. Lots of flurry around the opening of Parliament. I can't remember such interest in the convening of the National Assembly. Kind of because the National Assembly doesn't enjoy a very high rating among people. But yet, there was quite an interest in the opening of the National Assembly. And these things baffle us. And, people like you, political scientists, can explain. What explains the more than passing interest in the convening, the opening of Parliament this year, Dr. Jeffrey, in your estimation?
Well, first of all, it is a kind of a different parliament because of another party is likely to be the opposition, to hold the opposition leadership. But I don't think it's even that that has brought this interest. It's the nature of the other party who is supposed to hold his opposition in this leadership position. And it would seem that the Americans have an interest in this party and would like him to be extradited. And that is what's causing the interest. And if you look at a strictly conceptual problem, you will ask, well, how are we to act? Are we to, as Guyanese normally say, kowtow to the Americans? Are we to bow to their wishes? Or are we supposed to do what is normally done? And that is a big question. And you're talking about here something on leadership of the opposition and all of that. And that is why in this kind of parliamentary system, you do have at times when the two parties must get together, or the opposition and government should get together and have a discourse about what is taking place. But what you have in Ghana, it's not really a democracy. Well, you don't have a democracy in Ghana. What you have is an autocracy trying to pretend it's a democracy. And the result is that the PPP is by itself out there doing all these things. We are not aware, or the opposition is not aware of what it is that is preventing this kind of thing from the appointment of the leader of the opposition. We know generally that, yes, it has something to do with the Americans and the problems, the legal problems they have with America. I think we know that, but nobody, because the structure is such, the government don't sit down with the people, the other people in parliament, and say, well, this is the problem. If we do this, this will happen. If we don't do this, this is possible to happen. And that is precisely the role of the opposition. Essential leadership is opposition in a parliamentary democracy. The government will say, in a situation like this, the government would say, not this one, but similarly, the government will call the opposition together and say, well, this is what we are faced with, and we cannot operate in the normal way at this time. But outside of the border problem, the PPP don't want to call anybody to do anything. They are running the show. They control the show, and it's the confusion because we know what the law says, we know what was custom and practice, but we should still have to have information that would prevent us from doing something that can harm us in the future. And if the PPP thinks, as it obviously has, because it's not doing the normal thing, that such things will harm us in the future, not necessarily the PPP, but certainly the people of Guyana, well, then the people of Guyana should know what it is that we are talking about. And if even they can't know in terms of a public knowledge, their representatives should know for the representative to sit and say, well, we think that you have to operate in this given way. So I understand what's going on. It is quite clear that there is something that that is preventing this government from behaving in a normal way. What it is, no one knows. And that's
What
it.
it, what it is, no one knows. There have been lots of talk, Dr. Jeffrey, and you hinted at some of it in your answer. Lots of talk that there's been precedents, that in the past, the leader of the opposition was not elected at the first sitting. There's nothing new, nothing to worry about here. Um, but as you said, they're not telling us why. It is not normal for governments in this part of the world to wait until the very last day that the Constitution allows for the convening of Parliament to convene Parliament. There must be something. And as you are arguing, that because we live in an autocracy, um, the government doesn't feel it's accountable to anyone. But I think it raises a larger question, and that is the Westminster system, as we know it. Of course, Guyana has a hybrid system, part presidential, part parliamentary / Westminster. But the idea that the convening of Parliament, the election of the opposition, that the executive branch seem to have the last say in all of this. Have we not outlived the Westminster system that we were given at the time of independence? I mean, it's almost 60 years now since independence. And basically, what we have is what I will loosely call a kind of executive tyranny. Certainly executive supremacy, if not tyranny. That it is the executive that determines what happens in a co-equal branch of government. You care to comment on that?
Yeah. You see, it is not even the executive that does it. The Westminster system in our condition, it's extremely problematical. They Americans, the Agency for International Development, did go and ask some people to look at it. And they made a clear point that this system, in our Ghana context, this system is not workable. Because, first of all, there's ethnic voting. Where this election you just had, it's ethnic voting. PPP gets, since the 50s, that may well be just after the 53 election. The PPP has been getting 90% of the Indian votes in this country. And the same thing, vast majority goes, of African goes with the PNC. The last time the PPP, I think Jagan himself faced the problem in terms of winning his constituency in Port Morat was when a Scottish doctor by the name of Sharples stood against him there. I think it was 1947 or 53. And they had to actually ask people like that, Jainarayan Singh and all them to go up there. All the Apanjat and all that wasn't working. The Indians was, that constituency was supporting Sharples. But since then, the Indians have voted en masse for the PP. This election, they vote totally en masse for the PP. PP comes and tell you that racism is over, but the people vote for them en masse. So what I mean, how racism is over. So it is not over. What the PPP faced, as I said, over repeated term, was a broken PNC, and that has happened before in 2006. So effectively, what we are facing here is a what we call a bicommunal society. two large ethnic groups uh, have control of the situation. And what is necessary is for you to have some kind of governance arrangement that prevents any one of these groups alone from making decisions that can affect the other one. And right now, essentially what you have is the PPP alone, essentially voted for by Indians, because that is what they must be. And they have a good percentage of the Amerindians too. And essentially this is what we have been doing for the longest while. It's outdated. The people that the United States Agency for International Development made it quite clear. The winners takes all mentality is pervaded in the society, and it is bad for Guyana. They said it in 2021. It is bad for Guyana. They did a study. And therefore, what you need is a system that, even like Suriname, essentially in Suriname, what happens, you have to have 2/3 majority to win the presidency. Here, all you have to have is one vote more, and you can win the presidency. So you need to change that system. But I want to tell you something. Perhaps the best system in the world for a country like Guyana is Switzerland. So you sit at the table together and make decisions. So we wouldn't be in this dilemma now. We would not have been there. In any decision that needs to be made, from border to controversial decision, from border to anything else, oil, all of that, we will sit down and have to come to some kind of consensus about the outcome of the before the decisions are made. And that is what is the problem. The Westminster system don't even give to the government of the day. It gives to the party of the day. It gives to the leader of the party of the day the rulership of Guyana. You know, that's what's happening. Orphan can be messing around as the president, but at the end of the day, it's the leader of the PPP that runs the show. It's not Jagdeo I'm talking about, from Janet Jagan, Jagdeo, all of them. It's the situation. And then the same thing in the PNC. It's the same thing. It's Granger that run the show. It's a leader, because the leader determines. They can become leader of the list. They can determine who become president. And therefore, instead of you have a separation of powers, you don't have it. The legislature, the judiciary, and the executive is supposed to be separated, but not so. The government is controlled by the party, and the result is the party controls the legislature, because they determine who goes up to be parliamentarians and vote. So what you have is essentially a dictatorship, and the PPP is operating just as if it is. Just as if it is. They have been quarreling about the rule of law index, but the people say they are dictatorship, and they don't like it. But that is not the point. That is what they're doing. They have it, and they don't want to change it. And it needs to be changed. So you are totally correct. That is the major problem. And governance in Guyana that allows you to have all the groups in this country to have a say, a sensible say of what is taking place, is this primary issue. All didn't talk about oil. You see, I don't bother with your story. I used to write all these things on oil and all this. I don't bother. It's a government's issue you face with here. The people say they need to find a way, that group that I'm telling you about, that the university, they need to find a way to form a functioning democracy based on sharing of power rather than winner takes all system. This is not Jeffrey. And it doesn't matter how you spin it. You go out there and I see people writing long epistles. Oh, We are the people are wrong. Jack Joe is wrong. This one is wrong. It's the system stupid. It's the
Dr.
system.
Henry Jeffrey, is the system stupid? Dr. Jeffrey, your last column, Ethnic Divisions and Self-Interest Stall Democracy in Guyana. I think you spent the last couple of minutes talking about the ethnic divisions and how ethnic divisions work against democratization of the system and the society. But you said ethnic divisions and self-interest. Explain to us what you mean by self-interest.
First of all, ethnic divisions. And when I say so, I mean, remember, I was writing some of these things very long, and I certainly been writing them during the PNC government. The self-interest comes in. Well, we know what ethnic division is. They give a group of politicians, like that has happened now, the vast majority, maybe 90% of Indians went and voted for the PPP. And they do have a good proportion of Amerindians vote. They didn't have any Africans vote, but Africans are a serious part. African ethnicity is about 40% of the country too, those of African ethnicity. So but they didn't have that kind of they don't have that kind of representation at the level of governance. So what is absolutely necessary? Absolutely necessary. Repeat the question.
It's self-interest. Explain to us what you mean by
self-interest. Yes, because you see, I'm dealing with a bit by governance. Self-interest is when the leadership now takes power and then decides, we are not going to do, indeed, we're going to keep the same old system, but we will be in office forever. No, the thought that you must be in office forever is undemocratic. Just the thought, thinking of it. But it has happened not only in the PNC, but it's happened in the PPP. Not only in the PPP, but it happened in the PNC. You had the PNC went to government, won the 2020 elections.
2015.
This thing must change. You were there writing all sorts of things, saying when it got changed, and in a sense, trying. But what did they do? Nothing. Instead of that, they're saying what they have, the coalition that they have is the kind of coalition that necessary for Guyana. When the coalition was essentially based on African votes. The Indians were locked out for the most part from it. And that cannot do, it just would not do. Arthur Lewis, all of our people indeed, the best people seem to think that Arthur Lewis, they call him the father of shared governance. It's not governance. No ethnic group should be locked out from the decision-making process. I said that Arthur Lewis since 1964. It's nothing to do with Africans and the Indians and so on. If people want to vote for their ethnicity, let them vote for it. But you can't have one person start voting for it and then telling the other side you mustn't vote for it. That's precise. You need a system that would prevent anyone, one of those groups, to act against the interests of the other. That's what you need. In Switzerland, I'm telling you, maybe I think perhaps the best system in the world. The Americans better look at it. The top four parties, there's not a president, there's a presidency. And the top four parties has been running that country in presidency and rotating every year. So nobody can say I'm a president and I can do this because, and they do consensus in terms of decision making. You have to look around. Suriname over there. To be president, as I just told you, you have to get 66% of the vote, 2/3, to be president. So no president can go there and start to do a whole lot of nonsense. And because no one group there can give him 66. Now even two groups can give you 66. So they have to take into consideration what the other people. Until you have a system like that, don't go around and say, oh, we choose the PPP. It is our fault. We choose the PNC. It's our fault. It's not. If people want to vote for their ethnic vote, let them do so. But the situation must change. The Westminster situation must change to make sure that whoever takes government, largely based, because they are largely based on ethnic groups, should not be in a position to negatively affect the other group without their consensus.
And you have said that it is that self-interest and ethnic division that stall democracy in Guyana.
Of course. Because, yes, I'm missing the self-interest. When I said self-interest, what I meant that I think the vast majority of people in this country understands that. The truth is the self-interest is the leadership, the people who got in the leadership. That is it. Look what self-interest has done to the PNC at the last election. Look at it. It's sheer self-interest, nothing else. Nothing else. The PPP, that can't happen because the PPP got a thing called democratic centralism, which means the leader control everything. The PNC has been experimenting for years with a greater level of democracy and openness. Nobody can deny that. That can't happen in the PPP. So effectively, that is very self-interest. You end up with some leaders, previous ones in the PNC, Jagdeo and company, and they think, no, we can rule forever. We got Indians vote. We have been pumping them up with all this thing. And so, yeah, we are there forever. Yeah. Anybody that wants to be in power forever is not a Democrat. Democracy is not going to be in power forever.
Why, in a country like Guyana, democracy is so important? And define for us what you mean by democracy. Because as you know, as a political scientist, democracy means many things to many people in America. When they talk about democracy, they're talking about more procedural democracy as opposed to a substantive democracy. Arthur Lewis talks about a democracy meaning that all those who are affected by a decision must be at the table to make the decision, a more substantive kind of democracy. What do you mean by democracy and why democracy is important for a country like Guyana?
Democracy is not important for a country. Democracy is important for you. Because essential, and me, and everybody, essentially, it's about freedom. Democracy is only about freedom. Freedom is the capacity to do what you want to do. Let's go blanket here. Freedom is the capacity to do what you want to do anytime you want to do. Then you are totally free. But in a society, that is not possible. And man is a social being. He lives better in a society. So you have to have rules and regulations about how that society operates. The minute you come into the social context, that's why democratic country speaks to individual liberties and collective liberties. So effectively, society should not get involved in my personal business unless it is affecting the society. We make laws because those, and we must adhere by them, and we got judiciary and all that. And when we make those laws, how do you make those laws? You can't have a Granger or a Jagdeo sit down and make those laws about my freedom. I should be free to do what I want to do. If I can't do it because I'm a social being and I'm making social laws, I must be part of the process of making that. mean, I can't depend on on you to make decisions for me. To the extent that you do so, you're doing it for yourself. I want to be there to make societal decisions. And the only way that I will consider being there and as an expression of my freedom if all of us are there on an equal basis. The minute you want to there on a higher basis than me and you can make decisions and suppress me or not suppress me, this situation is not democratic. The mere fact that you can make a decision without me is false. That is not what I'm in society for.
That's what I'm in society for. You know, a lot of the space in the news cycles is taken up with the Muhammad issue. Yeah. Muhammad got votes that would traditionally go to the PNC. He got a sprinkling from the Indian Guyanese community. But the PPP seem more hell-bent than the PNC/APNU in engaging Muhammad and in a sense, politically destroying him. Why is that so?
Well, I think we had this discourse before. First of all, I told you, and I hold, that the Mohammeds aren't stupid and the PPP aren't stupid.
Okay, good.
Good. The Mohammeds must know that the PPP can't do anything else than they are doing because they are caught up in the geopolitical situation. The Americans are the big bad boys around here. We have already had Sue and all of that to have calmed down any expression they might well have about independence. So effectively, the Mohammeds know, they know that the PPP can't just say, oh, let them alone. The Americans bring evidence and give them. They might try all their little shenanigans and do all sorts of things, but they cannot do anything else that they are doing about the Mohammeds right now. They can't. What you want them to do? Mm-hmm. Tell me what you want. Now, the Mohammeds must know that. And therefore, when I hear all this thing, they're not stupid. If I was in their position, I know Barrett and Orphan can't particularly do much more for me. They're going to be in the big trouble.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's a matter of what kind of strategy we can work out so that I can possibly mitigate the outcomes for me. And I'm seeing they're working it out. They are. I have no doubt. I said it on program before. 2024, between 2024 November and 2025 December. Mohammed's collect a whole lot of money from the PPP, and the $35 million. They print it in the press. People found out and they put it $35 million. Look what has happened in Region 4. Don't matter with all the shenanigans. At the end of the day, it's the Mohammed movement that make the PPP got Region 4.
Right.
You just got to do not worry with all the gap and you have money and they're sprinkling it about and so on, and you're going to have all sorts of charlatans going to get some money and do any old thing. But it is my content that Mohammeds are in collusion. No, but even if they weren't, look how their actions are affecting you. gotta be a little smart. Look at how the actions affecting you. Whether or not they're in collusion is not what my concern.
Right.
Actions are affecting me negatively. And therefore, Linden, they have up to now the thing. And the way it runs, it goes back now to the PPP to make a decision who's going to control it. The force. That's why they said, no, we got to go to the minister.
Yeah, and I hope, audience, that you all are listening carefully to what Dr. Jeffrey said.
You can't bother with all this thing. It's social media. It's what they call it, astroturfing, surfing, and all of that. So they got good professionals to help with this. This is not just thing. And when you're hearing all this, ask yourself, what the Mohammeds expect the PAPP to do? Can they expect them to do much more than they're doing? Is the boss call them and say, look, there's information, act now. And, okay, what then is the result of their activities? Their activities are resulting in you losing.
Exactly.
Region this and everything. I mean, I don't see, and as I said, I'm not saying it, I'm just going by the logic of the situation and the outcomes. And that's what I was taught to look at, outcomes. And the outcomes of this has been, they got Region 4. They have set it up now to get Region 10 because it's the minister and they're the minister. So let's not look at all these things. Social media has confused the issue. So that is why I think they are behaving like this about the Mohammeds. That is what.
Yeah, and I think the point is well taken, Dr. Jeffrey, and that is why I brought it up tonight again, because collusion is not just intentional collusion, but the outcomes show collusion whether we like it or not. And that is precisely the point. It's not whether one gets in bed or one support who and so on. The fact of the matter, if you take win out of the equation, the PPP would not be controlling Region 4. If you take win out of the equation, the PPP would not be decided who controls Region 10. And so it is that kind of discussion that I think is lacking, as Dr. Jeffrey says, on social media that confuses the issue. Dr. Jeffrey, there is a lot of talk about extradition. I don't know how much you are versed in this extradition process, but just today, it came to light that the government of Guyana is paying the fee for the American lawyers who are prosecuting this case.
The Jamaican lawyers. It's not Jamaican lawyers?
It's a Jamaican lawyer. That's the other element. There's a Jamaican lawyer representing America, and Guyana is paid. The Attorney General has said that that is no biggie, that the country that is asked to extradite usually bears the financial burden of the lawyers. Is that so? From your knowledge of being around government?
It might well be so, but why did they ask for somebody else? What America is telling you about your own country? The minute they come and say, we don't trust no lawyer in Ghana. I mean, these are people, in one way or another, they're not to be, to be trusted with this sort of case. You don't know what they will turn up and do. The minute the man come and ask you that is the opinion that the whole thing, the legal profession in Ghana is tainted.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, outside of business, pure business cases and so on, everybody knows the whole political thing. You have not had conformed head of for 20 years of the judiciary that's supposed to be independent. And when you are supposed to have it, just one person resign under questionable conditions. They said a new CCJ head came and think, I don't know, but if he did, if I was a CCJ head and I was asked by the government to help, I would have pointed out to the government that, sir, even if I talk to this lady or whosoever and they resign, the situation, the problem isn't solved. There's no solution. You might have a man in him now and so on, but that's not a solution. The problem is the nature, it's the structure by which you get this thing done. It's this thing that says you have to have agreement and then you don't have any tie-breaking rules. Sir, if I'm to help you, I'm not talking to nobody about resigning. I am talking to you about going to Parliament and change the rules. Make the necessary reforms. My job is not to go and ask nobody to resign because the situation has not changed. Because now you have the opposition might well say, if Win says and if Win gets here, we have another situation in which you're going to say, just like Region 4 or Region 10. Gets up and say, no, we don't agree. And then you can't reach agreement. We are in the same place, although you ask somebody to resign. You have not, for the position he holds, he has not dealt with the situation as it's supposed to be dealt with. Deal with it as in a neutral way. It's the problem. Deal with the problem. Your system says you got to have agreement. You wrote a constitution saying that you must have agreement without a tiebreaker, and there are numerous ways of having tiebreaker. And yet your predecessor said it's the best constitution in the world, almost the Caribbean. Yeah, so that's
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Dr. Jeffrey, your column 2 weeks ago talked about affirmative action and democracy. And you suggested that Dr. Jagan, when he came into office in 1992, hinted at affirmative action as one of the means of democratizing the society, but that the PPP has moved further away from that. Speak to that for us.
Well, David, when we speak of the PPP and the PNC, we must know that we have to make some clear differentiation about timings. Mm-hmm. Because the PPP of Jagan is not the PPP now. The time they try to pretend they are, but you can go down the road and see that the PPP are born and not the PPP now. They were facing different situations at the time. Indeed, at the time you were against them, and because of all kinds of things. So effectively, the PPP, we were speaking to the notion, not me, Jagan. I used to meet Jagan every Thursday for a couple of hours. That's forever time. And he says to me, Jeff, all these big contracts going foreigners. And I think that we need to get these contracts coming to the people of Guyana. And maybe what we should do is break down these contracts into smaller lots, because or else I think we were focusing mainly on the sea defense and so on. And he says we can break them down into smaller lots and think, what do you think about this? So I said, let me first of all agree that we need to do all we can to get things for Guyanese, to get these jobs and do these works and so on, whereas we never develop as a country. But there's a problem too. The other problem is, let me take the sea defense, and that's what we were focusing on. I said, if you start breaking up contracts and you got to watch how you do this, now you got to have somebody, which might add cost to what's taking place, to stand over all these contractors and see that they are doing the work of a similar quality. If you give a man a village, well, let's say, the seawall across a village, who says his work would be as good as the other man, or even stick to the quantities? So you're going to have some consultants and all of that. And so we keep talking about that. And he finally come down to say, well, we will have to see. I think he even got a Trinidadian consultant and so on. And that is how a whole lot of these Guyanese businessmen start getting these contracts, and in that sort of quite a liberal manner. That's nothing more. What is that? That isn't that trying to help your own country and your own people. I'm not saying that he was trying to help Indians and Africans. I'm saying that was a formative action, at least national affirmative action. Of course, you might argue back and say, where were the Clowkeys and all of them that seem to not have anything after and all of that. But that's another time of discussion. Because that's how you must operate in a situation where you have different people, poor, rich, Indian, African, Amerindians. You must have some kind of arrangement to see that equitability exists in the handing out of these contracts and so on. But no such thing. And this all arose when people start saying the PPP is creating an apartheid state, because they come to office and suddenly they came to office and suddenly, while under the APNU, government spending on personnel was 6%, they immediately come to office and change it to 3% in 2010. 3%. And then come on 5% and 6% and 7% increase. That they were doing all the time. Of course, APNU aired badly too, because not for governments to sit down and give people increases. It's for the workers to be organized, and their organization meet the government and negotiate for wages. And that is what they should have done. They should have. And imagine, the Public Service Union is essentially a bit supportive of them. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. Instead of that, they continue with the nonsense the PPP was doing, to just sit right there and say, oh, come on, we are giving you, no, we are your party, we'll give you a bit more. But that's not a problem. When again, it's the system, stupid. If you got a system, if you had established a system in your 4 years down there, it would have been difficult for the PPP to overthrow it and come back with the same nonsense. But that is not what happened. Same thing. Again, we go back to the personal kind of thing. So at the end of the day, you're in Parliament now, and you should see to it that we have an ethnic disparity study. What are the disparities? If they exist, PPP would say, oh, no disparity. Well, they won't even say that, because everybody can see that that's not true. What disparity exists and what programs and processes needs to be put in place to deal with the situation. That should be, we must have ethnic disparity study and analysis to determine what exists. Furthermore, it was illegal what the PPP was doing. If you want reparation for slavery, that was legal, as a matter of fact, because it was amoral slavery, but it was legal in these countries. But what the PPP had been doing to Africans in the public servants, but mainly Africans, for the last 20 years has been illegal. They have been refusing to deal with them in a collective way, and as a result, they've impoverished them. And they deliberately attempted to do that, so they can force them to vote for them. And therefore, there must be an inquiry into how that happened. Jagan started, when Jagan was alive, Jagan says that wage increases must be based on the inflation rate and growth in the economy. You ever had that under the PPP of yesterday? No. Even the other day, they come in and tell you they want to give you 8%. If the Americans then tell them that they got to deal with the nurses and doctors and so on, you want to get that 40% you have.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey. Yes.
And these are important things. You need to look clearly. It's the system, stupid. You got to look clearly at the system and work to change the system. It's not about Jeffrey or Jagnew or thing. They are responsible because of their gut power and their personality that's holding on to this power, and we're going to be there forever. But they are all autocrats. They're born in Jagan time. I don't even think they ever lived anywhere else than in autocratic countries. Nowhere else. That's all they know. They know Burnham. He's been doing this for the longest while. Although Burnham had good enough reason. Anyway, let me go there at this point of time. You have to do that. You have to have an analysis. These people have been your people have been flagrantly diminished economic, flagrantly by the PPP. And you must have an analysis, and there should have reparations. Just like how, when it was even legal, you want reparation. When it was illegal, the Jews got reparations. What the PPP did was illegal. And therefore, you're being in office in Parliament, not just trying to go and win election and all of that. It's to try to develop a system in Ghana that would give equality and inclusion to every Guyanese. Now one section, the PPP win the vote by 90% Indian votes and Comamor Indians. It is essentially an Indian party. Maybe you can say, no, you're not an Indian. You're an African party because half went so.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Certainly, I have no illusion about that, Dr. Jeffrey. People always say, well, we are a national party. We are not an Indian party, the PPP likes to say. But you can be an Indian party and a national party. You're not a regional party. You are a national party. That doesn't mean that you're, so that's nonsense. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, feels a number of questions, hammering away at the question of democracy, because at the end of the day, the economic system, the political system, as he has been arguing, must be grounded in fairness. And that's where the issue of democracy comes in. People are talking about development outside of fairness. And development outside of fairness really is not really development. And that is why we have this, if you will, dilemma of the fastest growing economy, one of the fastest growing economies, but also one of the highest rates of poverty. And that happens because of the governance. And the governance is autocratic, not democratic. Dr. Henry, Jeffrey, anything else before we go?
David, you said it all.
Thank you very much. And I will see you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks come very quickly these days because there is so much that's happening. Thanks again for joining us, Dr. Jeffrey.
Thanks to you and your audience. Thank you, David.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, always giving us something to think about. Think about what he said about the collusion. The collusion. When we talk about collusion, we're talking about an intentional collusion, an overt collusion. That's what we think. But it can also be a covert collusion, a collusion that comes as a result of the logic. The logic of the situation leads to a collusion between the PPP and the Mohammeds. That's where the logic has taken us. And we bemoan the fact that African Guyanese voted against, as Jeffrey says, a divided PNC and voted for Mohammed and win. And it was not their intention to have a collusion between the party that they voted for and the PPP, but the logic has taken us there. And that's what we have to contend with. We see a lot of sparring between WIN and the APNU, and I don't want to get into that kind of discussion, certainly not now. But it's interesting to see the two groups that African Guyanese gave their votes to aspiring with each other. But the logic has taken us there. Last night I did mention that I have a representational issue here in Buxton with vendors who are being removed because of the 4-lane highway. And the usual thing when these things happen, people are not satisfied. They had a meeting with the minister last week and I heard of it but couldn't attend it. But the people who came to me, some of them, and asked me to make representation on their behalf because they felt that they were being bullied and kicked around and so forth. And I called the minister on Saturday, and he promised to return my call. Up to last night, he hadn't. And that's when I made it public here. And then very early this morning, very early this morning, the minister called me. I think he was traveling. He was in transit at some airport, but he called me and we had a short discussion. We didn't exhaust the issues that I wanted to raise, but we promised to continue to have a discussion and try to ensure that those who are affected by this 4-lane highway, that they are properly, their issues are properly addressed and that they are properly compensated. We are not in the WA, we are not anti-development. I'm glad to see better infrastructure. We are glad to see better infrastructure. We are saying that we have to ensure that the development of the infrastructure does not unduly affect the lives of people. And the issues here is that people are selling at the corner of the road, and a lot of their business is dependent on people stopping and buying. And that is an issue that the authorities have to take into consideration. Where are you going to put these people? How are they going to move without affecting their livelihood? I pointed out last night, they don't make too much money. And to move them from the front door and put them at the back door because the law said so is not good enough. And I intend to continue that engagement with Minister. And as I said, my model of representation is twofold. Ask questions in Parliament of Ministers, but engage ministers to represent the people. And of course, my representation is not confined to Buxton. Wherever the road is passing, I know the road. They've already engaged certain communities and they've settled with some communities. And for those communities which they've not settled with, please get in touch with me and I will be very glad to represent your issue directly with the authorities. So just to report that the minister did call me back this morning and he did say, say the reason why he did not get in touch with me before. And we have started our conversation. And I hope that we are going to be able to ensure that all of these people are satisfied at the end of the day. You know, the law said this and the law said that and so forth. And we have to respect the rule of law, all of us, not conveniently. The government itself must respect the rule of law. The government can't respect the rule of law and tell people they must respect the law. But in between what the law says and what you are doing, that is you're building a highway, we have to make sure that people are not unduly affected and burdened. And that is the argument and the model that I am advancing. And I'm hoping, because there are about, I think, 42 people who are affected by this, the highway passing through Buxton. And again, I say, I am not opposed to improvement of infrastructure. I'm not. But I'm opposed to that improvement affecting negatively people's right to earn and affecting negatively the earning capacity. As I said, some of those businesses, you can call them businesses, some of those vendors they depend on the road. They depend on cars passing and people stopping and so on. And whatever you do, it's going to be a 4-lane highway. Yes, it's not going to be the same. Vending at the corner of the road is not likely to be the same, but we have to find a way not to interrupt these people's earnings. The earnings are meager to begin with, and now to take away that little front door from them and not find a suitable and a replacement, I think is unfair. So we have to work for that. And I intend to engage the authorities to ensure that. So thank you very much for tuning in to yet another edition of Politics 101. And I'll see you all again tomorrow night when I come with another edition of Politics 101. To all of you who continue to stay with us, keep the faith, because we are all we have. We're all we have.